Kind of continuing on where we were last week. So many clues, so many questions do we all have, right? We have been talking the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about light and darkness. Light and darkness. We have been looking at darkness, which is the Hebrew word hosek. Yeah, that word, that sound, and the misery and the chaos that it causes. It chains people with lies in underground cells. That's the literal meaning. And darkness covered the face of the deep, the Tehom. And we have also been looking at light, or the light of the Messiah from heaven to shine on those living in darkness. Or of peace. And that's verse 79 out of Luke chapter 1, second to the last verse in that chapter. Light and darkness, right? And this week has really been a very momentous kind of a week. We had a couple of deaths of a couple of very important people in America. One, Carmen passed into the light this week, and Rush Limbaugh passed into the light this week. How many of you remember Dan's bake sale from 90-something, up in Fort Collins? 93, is that when it was? How many of you spent hours and hours and hours learning from Rush Limbaugh about our country? What a wonderful guy he was. Carmen he spoke to the generation down below us, and also to us. My daughter-in-law put up a picture of one of his first concerts in Iowa, and she had the shirt from it. She said, "I think I'm going to wear this to church on Sunday." And it was one of the first concerts she got to go to as a teenager. And he really made an impression on her. Carmen had a lot. My mic keeps going in and out. What does that mean?
Battery.
We need batteries again? Yeah. Okay, let's make sure.
One thing about Carmen,
yeah,
is we used to have up in Estes Park, the Christian art was discovered in Estes Park.
Really?
My wife was there when it
Okay.
happened.
Wow. Wow. Estes Park, from the high places of Estes Park. We had this, wow, that's really cool.
What happened is there's a spot where unknown people, guests, could actually have a spot to sing, and he did some singing, and then they asked him again if he wanted to go into kind of like the artist circle and do a little bit more, and then after he got done with that weekend, then there was people there that signed him on to record labels.
That's awesome. That's a lot of people were discovered up in Estes Park at the, what was it called again? The Christian Artists. Yeah, wonderful thing. I don't know if they probably still don't do it anyway. But at any rate, okay, listen up. Carmen had a lot of things to tell us in the songs that he sang, and he made music videos with them. We're going to listen to one of them today. I can't even begin to tell you how this landed in my lap this morning, about around 6 o'clock this morning. I'm not kidding you, it landed in my lap. I'm just going, oh! And I clicked on it and I went, oh Lord, you want us to play that today? He says, yes I do. Yes, I do. This is like a mini, it was a soft landing, like a mini teaching on darkness and light. It's all right here. We learn things through pictures, right? At least that's how I learn. Here we go. Everybody count to 3.
1, 2, 3.
Later. That is a very powerful picture and word picture that we could all share together. I thought it was really cool that the witch was throwing him out.
Yeah. He invited him in and threw him out.
They threw him out, yeah. We have the power to throw demonic stuff like that out. It has no place. What place does righteousness have in a vessel of light? It doesn't have any possession or permission or whatever dealing with darkness. How many of you know the light of the world deals with the darkness in this world? And I'm talking about, I don't mean night and day, I'm talking about darkness, the hosek, the evil stuff that keeps people chained up. And we're going to be talking about two women, and I'm only going to basically talk about one woman today, the Syro-Phoenician woman from Tyre. She's a woman living in the darkness, but coming to the light. And next week, because next week is Purim, we're going to deal with Queen Esther of Shushan. Easy for you to say. You're not Dutch, probably. Anyway, a woman living in the light, dealing with the darkness. I want that to sink in just a little bit. Two opposite ends of spectrum. Okay, so today we're going to call for a road trip. We'll find it in Mark 7 and also in Matthew 15. And I like this little picture that says, God is with you wherever you go. You need to remember that. It's going to take a road trip to Tyre, which is 50 miles from the Galilee. And Tyre is outside of Israel. See, I have a little, if you watch for the little red circle, it will show you where it is. There it comes. Tyre is up on the coast of the Mediterranean. So Yeshua's going to the sea. By the sea, by the sea, by the beautiful sea. He didn't get to do that very often. He went out to see what he could see, or something. But he went over to the sea. It's outside of the parameters of Israel, if you will, in a place called Phoenicia, and we will be talking about that a little bit later too. He went to a house on the seashore of the Mediterranean in the land of Phoenicia. How many of you have ever been to the Mediterranean? It's really quite beautiful. And it would be really nice to go there with you guys today. Just walk up and down the beach of the Mediterranean. Feel the sand in your toes, right? But when we look at the geography of things, it kind of makes you wonder sometimes, how in the world do we miss some of this stuff? The land known as Canaan was situated in the territory in the southern Levant. And I never even heard that word until President Obama came along, and he used it, which today encompasses Israel, meaning Samaria and Judea and Gaza and Jordan and the southern portions of Syria, as well as Lebanon. Okay, Canaan. Levant, common, and we'll get to this a little bit later too, but I just want you to look at that word, Phoenicians, and other trading ventures and the establishment of commerce with cities such as Tyre and Sidon. Okay? The Phoenician people had more waterways than they did land. They had more water than they did land. They were the merchants. They had all these trees up in Lebanon, so they built a lot of ships. And they became expert sailors using the stars and so forth. They knew how to navigate their way around. They probably went as far as India. They probably came as far as America by the time Solomon got here. But they lived in what is modern-day Lebanon, and the Hebrew word for Laban means white, and the Phoenicians called the mountain of Lebanon the White Mountain, where they lived. Call your attention to this. We go all the way back. I'm doing like Hebrew does. It goes this way, it goes that way, it goes up, it goes down. After the flood in Genesis chapter 6 and after the Tower of Babel in chapter 11, the earliest known name for this whole area was called Canaan. And Terah, who's Abram's father, took him from Ur of the Chaldees. Remember Ur of the Chaldees? And they went to Haran. He took Abram, his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram. And together they set out from Ur and went up to Haran. Okay? And dad, not Abram, but his dad said, okay, that's far enough. And they stopped there for however many years. And he died up there. And then this is where God called Abram from. I want you to go to a land that I will show you. And he came from there. So said all that to say this. So Abram, 1, 2, 3. Abram, number 1, was born here. Number 2, went there. Number 3, came here. Okay? And all this area in between, this whole area, here's Phoenicia, outside the land there a little bit. And here's where Esther is. Here's the Syrophoenician woman we're going to deal with. Here's where Esther is. We'll deal with this next week. But this land in the middle is Canaan. Okay? So here we go. The Canaanite Syrophoenician woman. A woman living in darkness and coming to the light. Okay? And what am I going to do with you? I think I need a reader. Ira, would you be a reader for me? If you don't mind. Give her a mic. Give her my mic. No, you can. I'll come give you my mic. I'll come over there. And what I would like for you to do is read Matthew chapter 15, I think. Matthew chapter 15 and Mark chapter 7 carry the same story. Mark has a few different kinds of details, but this part, we're just going to go ahead and read this, okay? And number chapter, first one. Just read the whole thing. Yeshua is dealing with his Pharisees. Yeshua is always dealing with the Pharisees. Okay? And we got to deal with the Pharisees too. Yep. Okay? And Yeshua is dealing with the Pharisees inside his land. He's dealing with the nations outside his land. This is the point. Okay? Ready?
Yep. Matthew chapter 15. Then the scribes and Pharisees who were from them came to Jesus, saying, "Why do you transgress the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread."
Notice the word tradition of the elders. Tradition. Okay.
But he answered and said to them, "Why do you also transgress the commandment of God because of your tradition? For God commanded, saying, 'Honor your father and your mother,' and 'He who curses father or mother, let him be put to death.' But you say, 'Whoever says to his father or mother, whatever profit might have received from me has been dedicated to the temple,' released from honoring his father or mother. Thus you have made the commandment of God of no effect by your tradition. Hypocrites! Well did Isaiah prophesy about you."
Excuse me, Mrs. Emily, I'm going to interrupt you right here. What he was just saying right there, let's translate that into modern day English. We'll translate that into modern day English. And modern day English would tell us that, well, I'm just going to give this stuff to the temple and I'll get a tax deduction, and that way I don't have to take care of my parents.
Oh boy.
What he just said.
Wow.
That became the tradition of the elders. But put it into modern day speak. Ta-da. Corbin, yes. I gave it to the temple. I gave it to the church, so I get a tax deduction. And because I get a tax deduction, now I don't have to take care of my parents. Hockey note. Yeah. Those are the little fine details of the Pharisees. Okay. Called rabbinic law.
Well did Isaiah prophesy about you, saying, "These people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men." Then he called the multitude and said to them, "Hear and understand. Not what goes into the mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a man." Then his disciples came and said to him, "Do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this saying?"
You think he cared? Excuse me. That's not part of Scripture.
I'm sorry to be laughing. And said, "Every plant the Heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. Let them alone. They are blind leaders of the blind, and if the blind leads the blind, both will fall into a ditch." Then Peter answered and said to him, "Explain this parable to us." So Jesus said, Are you also still without understanding? Do you not yet understand that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and is eliminated? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and they defile a man.
Oh, what are things? What defiles things? What defiles
the mouth?
Because where is it coming from? Out of the mouth. It's coming out of the heart. It's not coming out of the stomach. It's coming out of the heart, and those are the things that defile man. You guys are really sharp. Hey.
And it says so right here. It says
It says it plain.
it's an open book test. For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashed hands does not defile a man.
Okay, now we're going to change the whole scenery. And I have been begging people for years to take a yellow marker, or whatever color you prefer, and to yellow mark. See right here? Yellow mark where it is that Yeshua is speaking from, or where he's going. It really helps to backtrack and see where was he when he said this kind of a thing. So where he's going right now in verse 29 is where? 21.
Higher and higher.
Okay, go ahead, Myra.
Then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came from that region and cried out to him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely demon-possessed. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, Send her away, for she cries out after us. But he answered and said, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. And she said, True, Lord, yet even the little dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said to her, O woman, great is your faith. Let it be to you as you desire. And her daughter was healed from that very hour.
All right, thank you very much. Now we're going to unpack this a little bit. He surprised me this morning very much. Delightful surprise. You'll find that story in Mark 7 as well. So, traditions of the Pharisee: can't eat bread without washing the hands, and this is what a rabbinic hand-washing cup looks like. It's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you, it's what comes out of your heart that defiles you. Do you realize that when you're speaking to somebody, most of the time that's what's coming out of your heart? It's your heart that's speaking. Or you can ask somebody when they're having a bad day, or you can ask your kid when they're having a bad day, or whatever. Is that coming out of your heart? Stop them. How's your peace doing today? God's message is always about our hearts, and Jesus came to heal the brokenhearted. That's why he came. We were having a discussion yesterday, I think it was, and if I had a microphone and went around and asked you, why did Jesus Christ come to this earth? And 99.5% of the Christians would say he came to die on the cross to forgive us for our sins. That would be, if not in the top three answers. But very few people would say he came to heal the brokenhearted.
Yep.
We think that's a kind of a nice little cliche. That's what he came to do. That's exactly what he came to do. We'll get to that in a minute, I think. Okay, we'll do it this way. Hello? There we go. This Syrophoenician woman was a Canaanite. She was a Canaanite Syrophoenician woman. She was living in the lap of luxury. The Phoenicians were very wealthy people. They were the merchants of the seas. Their cities were very fancy and very wealthy. She lived in a beautiful seaside city. Name one. California, Monterey. Okay, that, Malibu, there you go. Now you just missed my joke. Perhaps she sold seashells by the seashore. Yeah, I know, I can't. I practiced all week to say it once. But, she was also living in darkness, in misery. She was miserable. Her daughter was controlled by a demon, living in darkness, and something drew her to the light. Something drew her to the light. Perhaps it was because the light had come into the darkness. You suppose? Could be. Yeshua came to the sea, and the light obviously came with him because he was the light. All right. This is really neat. Okay, so we're going to go kind of back and forth between the woman on one side and Yeshua on the other side here. So she was shrieking. She crying out to him. No. I looked up what the word meant in the Greek. She was shrieking. She was a Canaanite woman. Her daughter was possessed by a demon. Guess what? She probably had some demons in her as well. She was shrieking at him. "Have mercy on me, son of David," she said. "My daughter is miserably under the power of an evil demon." Yeshua said, his response was he did not respond to her shrieking. He did not respond to her shrieking. He said absolutely nothing. Sometimes it's best to say nothing. This is where things get, this is what I learned this week. This is really cool. It says it right there. We thought we knew the story from all the sermons that we've heard before, or the Sunday school, or the Bible school that we were in, or whatever. But the disciples wanted him to send her away. And that word away is dismiss, divorce, put away. That's the very same word that Joseph used with Mary when he found out she was pregnant. Wanted to put her away. Get rid of her.
Again.
Yeah.
No, all right. Because he wanted to put. He just wanted. The disciples wanted him to send her away. Get rid of her. Get away from me, boy. You bother me, kind of a thing. Okay, they're enjoying the seaside. They didn't get to go to the Mediterranean all that often. There they were, and here's this woman shrieking because she was shrieking after them, and the word literally means behind them. So get the picture. Here's Yeshua out in front, the disciples behind him, and this woman is shrieking behind the disciples. That's what's going on. "Son of David, come and heal my daughter." Shrieking. We can't even shriek like that. And Yeshua spoke to his disciples. It's the disciples he spoke to. Everybody thinks that he said that he came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, or for the lost sheep of Israel. He was saying that to the woman. He turned around and he said that to the disciples. I want you to hear this.
Wow.
It's a big wow. Thank you, Lori. It's a big wow. He said this to the disciples. He said this to the disciples, and all of a sudden he opened the door. This is much bigger than Israel. This is much bigger. Let's put it this way. It's much bigger than the Jews. It's much bigger than you disciples. This is who I came for. I came for the lost sheep of Israel.
Don't send her away. I came for her.
Don't send her away. I came for her. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Hey, bear with me here. She changed her approach. And she stopped shrieking at him. If you shriek at God, if you shriek at Yeshua, you're probably not going to get a lot of answers. Okay, there's a soft word, hard word falls on a deaf ear, something like that. She changed her approach and stopped shrieking at him, and she came to him and bowed down to worship him. That's a totally different attitude, is it not? When you're seeking after the Lord. Michael? Yes?
In relationship to that, she has known that Jesus was the Messiah
Yeah.
in the Bible because she
the son of David.
Yeah, she had some, even if it was revelation to her or whatever, but her approach was totally wrong. And I'm telling you, there's so many times in the churches today that their approach to God is wrong. Do you hear me? It's wrong. It's wrong. They're out there, they're banging their drum and they're jumping up and down and they're screeching. A lot of this stuff is screeching going on. It's not worship. It's not playing him a melody that's coming from, and all of a sudden it turns into coming from the heart like what this woman is doing here at FOM. Myra, thank you. That's talent on loan from God if you want to know the truth. Not banging a drum because you've never had a drum lesson in your life. You're just banging it because you don't want to make a noise. You're jumping up and down and you're playing the same doggone chord. The same one over and over and over and over again. That's screeching.
Yep.
And I hadn't planned on saying that. That's from the Lord.
She knew who she was.
Yes. We got to know who we are too today. We are blood-bought children of the Most High God.
Amen.
She came to him and bowed down to worship him. And even the dogs eat the crumbs from the fall of the table of his master. This lesson is all about bread. Last week and this week, it's all about bread. What do you think? She came before him, asking him to help. Please help me. She said, please help me. She's asking him to rescue her daughter from the darkness, from those cages underneath in the darkness, the Hosek, where wickedness dwells. Oh boy. Some over here. There we go. The light was causing her fear of the darkness to flee. Everybody's afraid of the darkness. Nobody wants to be locked up in an underground cell. The definition of Hosek, the definition of darkness from Genesis chapter 1. Nobody wants that. The light was causing her fear of darkness to flee. Her fear was being replaced with faith. When worship happens, when you're in a state of worship, all of a sudden your faith begins to grow. It does, it just increases. That's what we need, right? Faith is one of the weapons of our warfare, not the shield of faith. Okay. He said to her, woman, great is your faith. Go. It is as you desire. And her daughter was healed at that very hour. This is another thing that fell in my lap this morning. We're just going to take a couple minutes to listen to this. This is wrong. Cannoli.
Okay, so let's just revisit this Phoenician woman here for a moment. The Phoenicians considered a dog a sacred animal, and they used dogs in healing rituals because they would, dogs will lick their wounds.
Yeah.
So they used them for that. The dog became associated with healing because of the curative powers evidently some dogs were removed. And the Phoenicians associated dogs with healing deities such as, what are this? That's who does it. Never heard of it. A temple to the goddess of Gula in Sin. I sin. It was called the dog. A temple was called the dog house. A temple to their god. It was Melford, I think his name was, with plagues and figurines of dogs found in the vicinity. They had graves. They were buried. Whatever. Okay. So Phoenicians, this is going to lead into the next part here, okay? It's very important. Listen. The picture of the Phoenicians that emerges is one of people rich in culture, adventurous in spirit, and often cruel and fierce in war and religion. Okay? They were merchants, traders, sailors, artists, and at the time of Hannibal, they were soldiers. Wow. Sounds very modern, doesn't it? They developed the forerunner of the modern alphabet and elevated the art of navigation. And they also practiced ritual sacrifice of babies. Is it starting to sound familiar?
Yep.
History, inhabitants of Canaan were never ethically or politically unified as a single nation. They were a bunch of nations. However, they did share sufficient similarities in language and culture to be described together as Canaanites. The children of Israel had to wait until the cup of the Amorite was full. The Amorites and Canaanites, remember? To go into the land until the cup of the Amorite was full before they were to go in and dispossess the Canaanites. The Phoenicians were Canaanites, and they were called sea people. They became the merchants of the city. They signed peace treaties with other countries. They made deals guaranteeing free shipping, and kind of like Prime, Amazon, Prime, no. In exchange for their independence. Okay? They became dealers of purple, very expensive purple. We'll talk more about that here in a couple minutes. Why was Israel instructed to kill Canaanites? God instructed them in Deuteronomy 20. The Lord told Israel
that one of the primary reasons that its army was to destroy the nations before them was so that Israel would not do these abominable things. These abominable things are found in Leviticus 18, which is where we're at in our regular Torah study, and we're just kind of briefly cover that today. These Canaanites, they were in no way were they innocent people before God and Israel. They practiced these such things as child sacrifice, incest, adultery, temple prostitution. They were morally bankrupt and full of wickedness, darkness. Here it is. Don't have sex with these various kinds of people. It's all the Judeo-Christian taboos that we have in our own culture. Not with your father's wife, not with your sister, not with your father's daughter, not with your... I mean, this is what these people were doing. Can you see why they had to be... God told them to destroy them, which Joshua did a pretty good job of destroying many of them, but not all of them. All this stuff is don't. Okay. 2 Corinthians 6:14 says, "Do not be unequally bound together with unbelievers, and do not make mismatched alliances with them, inconsistent with your faith. For what partnership can righteousness have with lawlessness? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness?" It just doesn't work. So we've got King Solomon. This is where he flipped it on me, and I don't know what to do with it. Maybe you guys can help me. King Solomon, the Israelite, and King Hiram, the Phoenician Canaanite, were friends. Based on what I just read you from 2 Corinthians 6:14, why? The king of Israel around 1000 BC commanded King Hiram of Tyre the cedars of Lebanon to cut for me in order to build a house for the name of the Lord my God. 30,000 workers were sent by Solomon to join King Hiram's men to hew the cedars of Lebanon for the temple. Yeshua was standing right there in Phoenicia where the cedars of Lebanon that were used in Solomon's, where they grew, that were used in Solomon's temple. Obviously the daughters of those trees, right? Where they grew out of the ground, they were cut, they were made into rafts. That's what Hiram did. He said, we'll cut them down, we'll bring them down to the ocean, we'll tie them together and bundle them up in rafts, and we'll float them down the side of the seashore to where you guys can pick them up. And then they took them up to Jerusalem. It's a long ways. And I'm not going to read this whole thing, but look at this. Hiram, the king of Tyre, replied by letter to Solomon, and he says, because the Lord loves his people, he has made you their king. And Hiram added, praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who made heaven and earth. That's right. He has given King David a wise son. Remember, he and David were friends. He has given King David a wise son endowed with intelligence and discernment, who will build a temple for the Lord and a palace for himself. Then he says, I'm sending you this guy, Huram Abi, a man of great skill, whose mother was from Dan. That should trigger a memory for you, for the right on the tabernacle. Oholiab was from the tribe of Dan too. He was the apprentice to Bezalel, who was from Judah. He is trained to work in gold and silver and bronze and iron and stone and wood with the purple and blue, crimson yarn and fine linen. He's experienced in all kinds of engraving. He can execute any design you want, you give him, and he'll work with your craftsmen and with those of my Lord David, your father. So they cut the trees down and they sent them, and the guys carried them up to Jerusalem. Now this is very interesting. Solomon took a census. Did David get in trouble for taking a census? Yes, he did. Solomon took a census of all the foreigners residing in Israel. And after the census, his father David had taken. And there were found to be 153,600 foreigners in the land. He assigned 70,000 of them to be carriers, meaning carry the logs up from the ocean up to Jerusalem, and 80,000 to be stonecutters in the hills, and 3,600 foremen over them to keep the people working. It almost sounded to me like he was becoming a pharaoh to the taskmaster. He put these guys into work, forced labor. Sounds familiar. Well, here's the reference from Exodus 31:6, Bezalel and Aholiab. Just makes you wonder, why did Solomon ask a Canaanite friend for help to build the temple in Jerusalem? Something so holy. Why? Why did Hiram send Solomon a Canaanite artisan? There were no artisans in Israel? Really? The artisan's mother was of the tribe of Dan. Okay? Why did Solomon do this? Hiram was a contemporary and an ally of King Solomon and sent Lebanese cedar trees and gold to build the temple in Jerusalem. 1 Kings 5:1-12, you can read that there. Solomon took a census. We just went through that. So what's going on here? There seems to be a strange mixture of Israelite and Canaanite of Phoenicia. Canaanites and Israelites are not supposed to mix according to the Torah, right? It just makes you wonder. Solomon, the guy has become an enigma to me. The wisest guy in all the land winds up with 1,000 women. He didn't have any war, but he had to do something with his time. It's an enigma. So 1 Corinthians 3:18, for the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God, for it is written, he takes the wise in their own craftiness. Okay? Could Solomon have been both wise and foolish at the same time? We all can be, so I suppose Solomon can be, right? The deal that Solomon made with Hiram, the Canaanite Phoenician king, had the Canaanites build the temple of Solomon. Those people whose religious stuff I just went through, what they were like, were building the temple of Solomon. Help me. Lord, help me. Okay? Here's the census of the foreigners. That's the word that was used. 150. Here they are, 70,000 to carry the cedar logs, 80,000 to cut the stone, 3,600 to supervise. Adds up to exactly 153,600. They match. And that temple that was destroyed. You think there might be some kind of a connection there? You think that Solomon maybe... I'm at a quandary of this, and we're just going to keep going just a minute. So Phoenicians, they are a very impressive civilization that sprang forth from the Levant, from that area, to encompass the breadth of the Mediterranean Sea for over 1,000 years. And like the Phoenicians before them, Venice, remember I told you we were going to talk about Venice? Venice was a Mediterranean maritime power. It's only right that today's Venetians should meet their cultural ancestors. Venice, Italy has something very much in common with the Phoenicians. So this is kind of their kingdom along the shorelines because they traded with all these people that lived along them. Here's Sicily. Here's Italy. This is Sicily. This is somewhere around here was Malta where we lost Paul last week. And anyway, this is Venice up here. I can't reach that high. Here's Venice, Italy, up on this side. And all the beautiful cities of Italy are along the coastline. Many of you have been there. I haven't. I would love to. Is it gorgeous? You've been there? You've been there? It's gorgeous? Yeah. And right up here is London, England. I put that there for a reason. In our modern day mapping, if you will look at where Venice is and where London is and where Washington, D.C. is, it forms this funny triangle. Isn't that interesting?
Yep.
Isn't that interesting? Traders, peace treaties, lots of wealth, military. I mean, somebody has to be at the top of the chain, I guess. But what we're doing with it is in darkness. A lot of it is done in darkness, sneaky tricks under the table, sneaking, men getting together in dark rooms in the middle of the night doing things like this under lamps. That's exactly right. Thank you. Thank you. The Vatican, the London,
The military.
This is where the three cities that are corporations. Well, the Vatican. I've got that at Venice, so, but it's same country.
Comes out of Venice.
Comes out of Venice?
Yeah.
All right. We got Venice. They control everything.
Yeah.
They're the main power button. They have London, which controls the money, and they have America, which controls the military. 3 corporate cities pushing the buttons. You see why they didn't want a certain guy to be president of the United States?
All of them are their own separate countries.
Yes.
DC is not a state.
Right.
London is its own government, and the Vatican.
And the Vatican is its own country. And here we are putting masks over our face and submitting to this. I'm not.
No.
A lot of our people are. So I'm just going to make this announcement today. Tomorrow, if it's not snowing. In Windsor, Colorado, there's a Safeway store over there. You don't have to wear a mask, believe it or not. I have not worn a mask. I do my shopping there all the time, Tamara. We don't wear masks. Over there?
King Supers doesn't require.
We need to have a group of people to go over there, not go in at the same time. I mean, go in 3-minute, 5-minute, 7-minute intervals or something like that. But just so that there's people in the store doing their shopping that are not wearing masks.
Esther doesn't require.
The front door does say mask required, but nobody enforces it.
See? Look at this is rumble, rumble, rumble. This is great. We need to do this. We'll talk more about it at lunchtime. But I want to go back. Remember, I spoke of purple. I want you to see something just to verify what you're. Speaking of purple.
Oh, yarn.
The color purple. This purple dye comes from mollusks. Mollusks. Okay, there you go. It took as many as 250,000 of these little guys right here, to make an ounce of usable dye. But the result was vibrant and long-lasting shade of purple. It didn't fade. Clothes made from the dye were exorbitantly expensive. A pound of purple wool cost more than most people earned in a year. So they naturally became the calling card of the rich and the powerful. It also didn't hurt that the people from Tyre purple was said to resemble the color of clotted blood. Listen to this. It's a shade that supposedly carried divine connotations. We wonder where the adrenochrome. Here. Okay, are you ready? Here's my final picture. These people.
Oh, okay. Yep.
That's what they got the memo. They showed up at the fake inauguration wearing shades of purple to show that is an in-your-face, that is an in-your-face, we are in control message.
With the glove.
Let the glove copy.
It's like if she had something like this.
Probably make a little sign to somebody.
Yeah, she probably is.
Yeah, the way she has her hands clasped.
Yeah, it's very odd even up close. You can come. I'll leave that up there. You can look at it. So we'll leave that there today. So wait a minute. So we got the Syrophoenician woman, and Yeshua comes to visit her at an appointed time. He heals her daughter because she wasn't shrieking at him. She asked him. She came and worshipped him and asked him, and he said, "Woman, your faithfulness is great. Your daughter is healed." The appointment was done. He went up to Sidon. I don't know what he did up there, and then he went back down and around to the Decapolis on the other side of the Galilee, and he healed a deaf guy with a speech impediment, and then he fed them. Not breads from under the table, but bread. He fed them living bread. And once you have living bread, you don't ever want to eat from under the crumbs under anybody's table. There's no reason to ever go to any other king, any other god, and eat from the floor of stuff that has fallen off his table. You don't have any business being at that table anyway. Correct? Somebody say glory. Thank you, Jesus, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Yeshua, for the lessons that you have to teach us. And they're all just buried here. He'll give you treasures hidden in darkness. You guys, you just have to dig them out.
Susan, don't you think that she had heard from people because they traveled that Yeshua had healed people in Israel?
He was a rock. He was getting...
Listen, this guy had 70 weeks to get his message out, if I recall.
This has been a presentation of Fellowship of Messiah with teacher Susan Miller. Video editing by Joel Thompson. If you've enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up icon below the screen on the left, and subscribe by clicking the bell icon below this video and to the right to be notified of each new video we post. Know someone else who'd love this video? Click the arrow pointing to the right in the upper right hand corner of this video and share. Until next time, Shavua Tov. Have a good week. And may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his everlasting peace and harmony in every area of your life. In Hebrew, that is, Yivarekeka Yahuwah v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Yahuwah panav alecha v'kuneka, Yisa Yahuwah panav alecha v'yasem lecha shalom.